Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I am going to be doing this top, which I'm going to put up on the corner of the screen what it fully looks like so that you have a better idea because you can't really see it completely stitched up on the neck part. And then I did some thicker straps for the body of the top. So yeah, I really think this top is really easy and simple to make. If you know your basic stitches, it is really easy to recreate. You pretty much just need to know how to chain, do a slip knot, and do double crochets, and that is it. And it looks a little bit more complex than it really is. So in the video, I'm actually going to be making it in another color. In the video, I'm going to be making it with this lace weight thread in a pistachio color that I really like. And yeah, I am now going to stop talking and we will get right into the video tutorial for this triangle halter neck top, perfect for spring and summer. Okay, so first we are starting with a chain of 170. Since on my previous top it was a chain of 160, I thought I would make the neckline a little bit bigger. I also chained an extra 2 for the turning chain. And yeah, the reason that I added more chains, which was 10 more chains, is because this is going to be a size like small to medium, whereas mine was an extra small. So now what I'm going to be doing is going into the chain and doing double crochets all along the chain. So first I would decide what yarn I want to use for this project. Since this is a lace weight yarn, I'm doing more chains, and I am, however, taking it and measuring it around my neck, so putting it over my head. I want it to fit a little bit loose since it has to come down into a V shape. So a V neckline is pretty much what I am creating. So that is what I consideration that every yarn has a different weight. So this is a lace weight yarn, and anything above that is much thicker. Okay, so all I'm doing as mentioned is double crochets all along the chain until I get to the very end of the row. I did notice that with lace weight yarn, it takes a little bit longer to get your stitches in to your foundation chain. So just be patient if you are using this type of lace weight yarn because it will take a little bit longer. But once you do your base chain, it will go much faster. So here it is. It's looking pretty good. I really like how lace weight yarn looks for tops, filet crochets, and so on. So we are just going to continue to do double crochets. Now, if you do not know how to do a double crochet, I do have a shorts video. So now we continue doing our 5 double crochets until we get to the 85th stitch, which is where we will add the stitch marker, and that is where we will begin doing 5 double crochets. So yeah, once you get to the end of the row, you are going to chain 2 and turn your work. And continue doing 5 double crochets. So here I have the stitch marker where I will be placing 5 double crochets into the same stitch. Now the number I got was 170 divided by 2 equals 85. So on the 85th stitch is where you will be inserting your 5 double crochets. Right now what we are doing is working on the strap. So we are doing 6 rows for the neck portion of the top. So we are almost at the stitch marker. So we are inserting 5 double crochets from the beginning. So from the very first row of double crochets on the 85th stitch, since we are creating that V-neck, and we're doing it all 6 rows, and then we will continue on to the body of the top, where we will as well continue doing our 5 double crochets on the 85th stitch. So here I'm just placing my 5 double crochets into the stitch where I had my stitch marker. Okay, so now we're putting the stitch marker back into our 5 double crochets, and what I suggest is putting it into the 3rd double crochet out of the 5, just to make sure you're always inserting your 5 double crochets into that stitch. Continue with your 5 DCs until the end of the row. And yeah, this is definitely a very beginner friendly crochet tutorial. So yeah, the steps are very repetitive. So now we just keep doing our double crochets again until we reach the end of the row, where you will again chain 2 and turn your work. So yeah, here's what your first set of 5 double crochets will look like. And we are just going to repeat now 1 double crochet into every stitch until the end of the row, as I said. So again, chain 2 and turn your work. And now we are on to our 3rd row, and we continue our double crochets. So here we are again, almost at the stitch marker. Okay, so now that we are at the stitch marker, I'm going to remove it so that I can insert the 5 double crochets. And then from here on, I'm just going to keep double crocheting until the end of the row. And then we will chain 2, turn our work, continue double crocheting until we get to our stitch marker, 5 double crochets. Then put our stitch marker back into the 3rd stitch. Keep doing our double crochets again until the end of the row and repeat. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I complete my 5 rows. We are done with the 6th round, and this is what it looks like. Excuse my voice. And now we are going to slip stitch it together so that it is a closed neckline. So make sure that you have them perfectly aligned so that you can slip stitch, because if you don't align them correctly, you will have maybe one higher than the other and it'll look like a very uneven stitch. So to slip stitch, you pretty much just insert your hook into the other stitch and yarn over and pull through, and that is pretty much it all the way down. Okay, so now that we are done, we are going to take our scissors, cut the thread, pull the thread through, and make sure you pull it tight. And yeah, it is pretty secure now. And this is what it looks like. It looks pretty nice and seamless. And I'm going to leave the thread hanging because I will weave it in later. So yeah, this is what it looks like in the front part as well. So now what you are going to do is put it over your head. Lay it evenly all around, especially on the chest area. See where you want it to lay, and pretty much just run your finger across to your armpit, to where your armpit ends, and that is where you will place the stitch marker for one side. You will do the same for the other side, and pretty much you will have a certain number of stitches in between the new stitch marker that we just attached and the one where you insert your 5 double crochets. Now for me, it was about 38 stitches between the new stitch marker and the marker where you increase with 5 double crochets, but of course it will be different for everyone. So okay, so since we have our stitch marker placed on one side, now we are going to go in and count 38 stitches again so that we can place our stitch marker on the opposite end of the other stitch marker, so pretty much on the other armpit area. So I'm just here counting 38 stitches. We're putting a stitch marker into that stitch, although we will be removing it to reattach our yarn again. But for now, we want to make sure we have both stitches on the same amount of stitches because we don't want to be thrown off by 1 or 2 stitches. We want to make sure that it's even on both sides. So now I'm taking a crochet needle. Some people call it tapestry needle. I call it just my crochet needle. And I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to loop it through the hole on my needle. But first we are going to remove one of the stitch markers, which is needed to do because I will be inserting the needle into that stitch where the stitch marker was. So yeah, we just put it through the hole of the needle, and now we can put it into that stitch. And what I would do is just maybe knot it like 2 or 3 times and make sure that it's secure on there. And I'm going to do it this way because I don't really want to do it with the hook. This is an easier method in my opinion, and yeah, it works out. So this is just the way that I am going to do it. Okay, so I knotted it 3 times. So I made 3 knots. Now it is secure. We can remove our stitch marker and we can put our hook, our crochet hook, into that stitch and we can begin to double crochet. Now I'm removing it because I no longer need it on that side, that is. So now we can chain 2. since we are starting again, but this time in a new point of the top. So we are going to chain 2 and place a double crochet into every stitch until we get to the stitch marker. Until we get to the stitch marker that now lies in the middle, which is our increase stitch marker, where we will be doing 5 double crochets. And once we complete those 5 double crochets, we will continue doing double crochets into every stitch until we get to the remaining stitch marker. That is where we just measured under the armpit, and there we will stop, chain 2, turn our work, and restart our double crochets again, going now back downwards into the stitch marker for the increase, and then going around again. So I'm pretty much going to show you so that you can have a little bit of a better, visual understanding, that is. So I'm placing my double crochets all the way down until I get into my increase stitch marker. Then after you place your 5 double crochets into the stitch marker stitch, then you continue until you hit the other stitch marker that is left on your top. That is the measurement that we took for the top, where it should begin underneath the armpit. Okay, so now we have reached the other stitch marker, and that is where we are going to place our last double crochet of the row. So we are going to do that. We are going to then chain 2, turn our work, and continue double crocheting back around. And you are going to repeat this process as many times as you need to repeat it. So until you are comfortable with the length of your top. For this top, since it is a standard small to medium size, I did 13 inches for the length of the top. You can do more or less depending on how cropped or how long you want your top to be. It is personal preference, to be honest. And this is what it's looking like so far. As you can see, it is growing not only in length but in the width. I'm going to work on the straps of the blouse. So they're pretty much the last stitch and going upwards on the side of the top. So I did 9 stitches in total. So using the very last stitch of the top, we are going to use a tapestry needle and put it through and make a knot and secure it very well. So I'm going to begin with the very last stitch, and I am going to chain 2 on that very last stitch, going upwards on the side of the top. And what I'm going to do is put my hook as I make my double crochets in whatever hole that I find on the side of the top. It doesn't really matter if the hole is a little bit bigger than the next one, because some might be bigger, some might be smaller. You do about 8 or 9 double crochets in total going across. So that's going to determine the thickness of each strap. So I like my straps to look a little thicker versus thinner. I just think it looks nicer. I don't really like a strap that's just a chain with slip stitches, something that's too thin. So as you can see, I'm going across and making my double crochets. Now when we get to the last double crochet, then you chain 2, turn your work, and do again your 8 to 9 double crochets. So it's just a repeat over and over and over. So I did 45 rows in total. I believe it was about 12 inches for each strap around there, more or less. So just keep going until you are satisfied with the length of your straps. And it's different for everyone. I mean, some people like a longer strap, some people like a shorter strap. So yeah, just do however many rows you would like. I really like the outcome of this technique of doing a thicker strap. So yeah, I am now done with this top. I'm here just showing you kind of what it looks like. Can't really fit it all in the screen, but yeah, I really enjoyed filming my first tutorial, although it was a little hard to do on camera. I'm not used to it, but I hope you guys enjoyed.